Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Bell with the Rockbridge Report, and joining me today is Jade Harris, a senior at Mary Baldwin University who ran for Glasgow Town Council this year. Jade, thank you so much for joining us today. So, what inspired you to run for local office at such a young age?
Well, I've always been interested in government and politics, and I saw that there was an opening coming up this year. Well, not necessarily an opening, but I knew an election was coming, and I decided to throw my hat in the race. Since I'm a senior, I'm almost done with school, I figured it's a great time to start.
Of course. So, what do you believe makes you qualified to serve on town council?
Well, I've lived in Glasgow for almost 10 years now. My whole family's pretty much from there on my mother's side. I really care about the town, the community, and in my studies at school, I've learned a lot about local government, how to run it efficiently, how local government in Virginia specifically operates, and I wanted to bring the things that I learned and apply them in a setting that I believe I could do some good in.
So the election this year in Glasgow was pretty unconventional. A candidate for town council was elected for mayor as a write-in, and now a candidate will be appointed to the third seat on town council. What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, my reaction to it is a little bit of disappointment because as I understand it, Shane, he ran a really good race and he did a really good job in getting out the information to write him in as mayor because no one was running for mayor and he stepped up and I'm really proud of him for that. But I just wish more people in the town would have realized, hey, he's running for mayor, let's write him in because you didn't also have to vote for him as town council. And it was a little disappointing because at a lot of the electoral functions, what do you call them? I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
The candidate forums?
Yes, the candidate forums. So at a lot of the candidate forums, I was the only person from Glasgow there. And a lot of people in the town had been complaining about the status quo and how things were operating in town council. Certain members weren't showing up to all the meetings. And I'm like, well, I've been showing up to all of the candidate forums. I put my name out in the newspaper because certain people running for town council didn't even do that. And that was free, easy, didn't have to go anywhere. But it is what it is. And I decided, that's what the people wanted. But we also did have really low voter turnout. I looked at the rolls, about 365 people voted out of about 800 eligible, which isn't surprising in an off-year race like this, but still.
So as someone who's already been really involved in politics at such a young age, what would you say to someone who doesn't believe that voting is important?
Well, I would say to them that in this race that I was in, it was about a 5-vote difference that kept me from being on office and not. And so those little 5 votes means a lot in a race, any race. So I'd say go out, vote, your voice matters no matter how small you think it is.
You mentioned that you were the only candidate who came to a lot of the forums. At the Buena Vista candidate forum, you were the only one in your race running who showed up to the forum. What was that like?
It was a little, I don't want to say alienating because it wasn't. I felt very much in my element, but it just felt disappointing that no one really cared that much to show up because I know people have jobs, but if you're in an election, you should at least try to show up to a few things. Do what you can, basically. And it just felt like everyone else figured, oh, well, I'm just going to win anyway, so I'm not going to show up at all. And that says a lot about the political process that we're in and the political environment, that people are just so apathetic, even those that are running.
What do you see as some of the biggest issues facing Glasgow?
I think a lot of the issues facing Glasgow are in regards to how laws are applied across the board, because we have a lot of issues with people being singled out for grass, but other people allowed to grow their grass as large as they'd like because they're baling it and then they're selling the bales of hay. But that feels like an unfair application of the law to those who are getting constant notifications in the mail about their grass, even if it's only up by a few inches. Another thing I'd like to think is a problem facing Glasgow is just general, not apathy, but we have an issue of young people leaving and not coming back. And I'd like to establish the idea that Glasgow is a good town to grow up in, raise a family and live, and not just use it as somewhere where you grow up and then you leave and you don't think about it ever again.
Do you plan to stay in Glasgow after graduation, whether or not you're appointed?
Well, I'm the type of person that Glasgow is home to me and it always will be. But I do think I have a responsibility to go out into the greater world, still in Virginia, but I'm looking at moving to Richmond after graduation, but I'd like to own a house one day in Glasgow itself.
What do you think are some other issues that are facing our generation as a whole?
As a whole, our generation is struggling with a lot. Job security is a major thing because as the population grows older, the older people stay in their jobs longer and they've got more experience, they've got more just years in the workforce, and that benefits them in a way that's good for them, and I'm really happy for them. But the younger people are sort of locked out of the workforce. They can't get those same jobs that someone who's their age could have gotten 20, 30 years ago. They start off with lower salaries, they start off with lowered future job attainment goals. That's one of the major issues. Another major issue is just dismissiveness from older generations. They don't really see our generation as one that can affect change, that can come out into the world theater, the world stage, and make a difference. And it's not even just our generation, it's people in their 40s that are being treated the same, which says a lot because as the older generation grows older, they're sticking around longer pretty much.
So how do you believe Glasgow Town Council can do more to bring business and jobs to Glasgow that would help the younger generation?
I think we could incentivize more tourism because we've got two great rivers, the Murray and the James, and they're at a confluence right there in Glasgow. And I'd like to see tourism boosted, and if we can boost tourism, we can boost tourist businesses. And those businesses would encourage more young people to visit Glasgow and also to stay, because I know a lot of great people from Glasgow that I went to high school with, and they got their start in whitewater rafting right here in town. And that's something I'd like to see celebrated more often than just, oh yeah, we've got a boat dock, I guess. I don't ever go down there. But that's also something that the Glasgow Town Council and the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries need to work together on, because the DGIF actually owns that land, so technically Glasgow citizens aren't allowed to use it, which is a major issue considering that it's still part of Glasgow and those rivers are part of our heritage. We're not allowed to utilize them.
And at the Buena Vista Candidates Forum, you also mentioned using the Appalachian Trail to bring business and tourism to Glasgow. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So we've got a really nice hiker shelter. We've got a lot of programs for hikers. Well, not really programs, actually. We don't have programs for hikers, but I'd like to see those programs implemented. That way we could boost our status as an Appalachian Trail town, get more tourism, get more people stopping and staying longer, because the longer people stay in Glasgow, the more likely they are to tell their friends and family about it.
So you're a college student, you obviously have a very busy schedule. How did you balance campaigning with your busy schedule as a college student?
Well, I did a lot at the same time. So I make campaign buttons, and as I was making campaign buttons, I'd be studying at the same time, or if I was coming home for campaigning, I would bring my schoolwork with me. I'd do it at home. I'm pretty good at balancing work life.
So when you're not campaigning, doing your schoolwork, what kind of things do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Watching TV, sitting on the internet. It's not very exciting, but I learn a lot from it. I am on the board at my campus's LGBT club, so I do a lot of programming with that. I'm the equivalent to an RA on campus. So basically it's sort of like a peer leadership program. So I'm in charge of a house, and our house is specifically for LGBT students. And we run educational programs, we run social programs. I don't play any sports, but...
Well, I heard that you auditioned for Jeopardy! Could you tell me a little bit about that?
So I took the online test. I guess I was good enough because I passed it. So about 10,000 kids took the test, college students, and only about 300 got pulled out of a lottery to come audition in real life. So I went to Philadelphia this past weekend and I auditioned, and it was great. I met people from Princeton, Yale, UVA. It was really nice. No one knew where my school was, but that's okay. They'd never heard of it, but I enjoyed that aspect.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. You're clearly very busy, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Elizabeth Bell with the Rockbridge Report.